Welcome to our website about the role of educator preparation programs in the implementation of registered teacher apprenticeship programs. This is a collaborative webinar between the Center on Great Teachers and Leaders, the American Association of Colleges for Teacher Education, the Cedar Center, and Pathways Alliance. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lynn Holdheide. I work for AIR, and I am advisor for both the GTL Center and Cedar Center, and I'm going to kick us off today. I'm joined here today by Dr. Wiadi James, who will be serving as the moderator of the panel session that occurs later in the webinar. He has 15 years of experience as an educator and is currently the Vice President of Organizational Advancement at AACTE, where she oversees development, strategic initiatives, and partnerships to advance educator preparation research, policy, and practice. We are also joined by Sabrina Baptiste, Program Manager at Pathways Alliance and Director of Program Operations at Innovate EDU. Sabrina co-leads the Pathways Alliance and focused on improving educator preparation programs nationwide. Sabrina believes in providing students and educators and families with a solid foundation in issues impacting education and population health that empowers them to make healthy choices throughout their lifetime. A few housekeeping items before we begin. First, these are AIR's inclusive meeting guidelines that we follow in meetings and in our webinars to improve the experience for all participants. Next, there are two ways that we use Zoom features to engage today. First, the chat is where presenters and panelists will post important information, links, and reminders. We will also respond to some questions in the chat. Second, questions to the presenters can be placed in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. We will be monitoring those questions and will respond either via chat or during the Q&A portion of the webinar. And lastly, if you'd like to use the closed caption button, please select live transcript. All right. As you can see here, we have a fairly packed agenda. We will start with an overview of the brief and the recently released National Guideline Standards for Registered Teacher Apprenticeships. This will be followed by practical examples from our colleagues at BSU and MSU, and we will end with a panel discussion. Today, we're hoping that you will walk away with an understanding of the ways in which EPPs can meaningfully contribute and enhance registered teacher apprenticeship programs. But before we begin and hear from our EPPs, we wanted to provide an overview of the brief that this webinar is designed to discuss. As many of you know, registered teacher apprenticeships have emerged as a strategy to address the nation's educator shortages and as a way to diversify the workforce. Approximately 165 has been allocated from the Department of Labor and the Department of Education to support initiatives across the country. The brief, which you can access via the barcode on the next slide, or it can be linked, you can find it linked into the chat as well, emphasizes that teacher apprenticeships hold the potential to make becoming a teacher more accessible, more affordable, and effective. And as with any new initiatives that prepare educators, there's a concern that quality is not compromised. And we believe that EPPs can inform the development and success of these programs by leveraging what we know and what we have learned about preparing educators over the years. Being at the table in the design and implementation of these registered apprenticeships can increase student enrollment, tailor the preparation of teachers for various contexts, and improve K-12 outcomes. I think it's very important for us to understand what are the benefits as an EPP to engage. And obviously, these three bullets here demonstrate what we're all interested in terms of the work that we do. These are described more in the brief and will be discussed by our panelists today, but we outlined several recommendations of how EPPs can engage and recommend exploring and strengthening partnerships, also looking at readiness throughout the state and within your EPPs, gaining faculty buy-in and engagement, and targeting prioritized needs in local context. And last, to consider how to blend and braid funding in order to fully support both the program and the apprentices that participate. On this slide, we provide a funding guide that can help programs access potential funding to make programs more affordable. As you can see here, the funding guide opportunities are sectioned by program design, field support, wraparound services, specifically geared towards the apprentice, and scholarship. This guide is full of a lot of information, but hopefully can be a helpful guide in designing ways to think about funding and how to blend and braid funding so that the program can be fully supported. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Sabrina.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the Pathways Alliance, the National Guideline Standards, and some of the wonderful work that we are currently doing in the field. I'd first like to talk about the Pathway Alliance. The Pathway Alliance is an uncommon coalition of leading organizations from the K through 12 and higher ed ecosystems. We're dedicated to supporting and implementing diverse and inclusive educator prep pipelines, including teacher residency and apprenticeship programs. The coalition is now a partnership of over 40 organizations, and we are co-led by Innovate EU and the Learning Policy Institute. This alliance has actively worked towards supporting implementation of practical and affordable EPPs by creating connective tissues among organizations to drive cohesion, resources, knowledge, and sharing in this vital field. We decided that we needed to include a comprehensive resource library and a standard definition of a teacher residency. During this work, we set out to address several problems that we saw in the field. We wanted to remove the financial barriers, address vacancies, really deal with the EPP deserts and the quality of support, and eliminate this concept of a first-year teacher. We found out that some of the benefits for EPPs is that apprenticeships can attract new federal funding for programs, increase enrollment, and help lower program costs for students. It can strengthen and deepen partnerships with districts and schools by building evidence-based best practices and aligned programs. Feel free to, we'll share some related sources from Pathways and AACTE once this wonderful webinar is over. What we also realized for apprentice is that apprenticeships can lower the cost of obtaining a teaching credential by creating a paid opportunity while the apprentice is in school. Apprentices receive strong mentoring while working alongside expert teachers and also enabling a hands-on experience that research shows is a key element of high-quality teacher prep programs. For districts, new funding sources can help drive down the cost of teacher support for residency programs, and also grow your own programs that allow schools to recruit from the communities that they serve, and create a model for developing competencies and mastery supported by the nationally recognized best practices, sort of what we did with the NGS. So we're very excited about that. Alongside that, we realized that federal, state, and local workforces and education leaders now have the ability with the Pathways Alliance. We work together to develop a comprehensive guideline for high quality educator apprenticeship programs based on the field that's based on the data that's in the field. We were able to work very closely with the U.S. Department of Labor, which published the guidelines that establish the requirements and responsibilities of apprenticeship programs that they must fulfill. In addition, they provide a work process schedule that outlines the professional and pedagogical skills to be attained during their apprenticeship. Next slide, please. We compiled a resource. I'd like to say, well, the best word for this is really a library of resources that is now available. The first I'd like to mention is our compendium. As an alliance, we developed a compendium of 4 teaching apprenticeship programs. One you'll hear from later during this webinar, Ball State. These programs exemplify the principles underpinning the National Guideline Standards for Apprenticeship Standards from K through 12 teaching apprenticeships. They review the exemplary programs that are intended to support the development in new teaching apprenticeship programs that benefit from increased enrollment and retention of prospective teachers by detailing how successful apprenticeship programs are meeting the mark. Our next resource is our EPP, which is our Educator Preparation Program fact sheet, alongside a collaborative group of education and workforce leaders from school districts, state education agencies, teacher prep programs, and national advocacy groups. The Pathways Alliance has developed this definition of a teacher residency to help clarify the field use of the term. We wanted to ensure that we were providing quality, affordable, and also diverse pathways to ensuring that we have a quality teacher prep pipeline down the line. So this report aims to, again, support our local partnerships, discussions about residency design, and provide state, regional, and federal leaders with a condensed yet thorough definition to guide policies that will help a quality residency program attract, prepare, and retain a robust and diverse teaching workforce. So all of these resources are available to you. Please feel free to use the scan button to have access to these. Also, please feel free to visit us at the pathwaysalliance.org, where you'll find not only these wonderful resources, but also our very robust resource library. And please feel free to subscribe as well. This is also for those who are wanting to join us, who would love to be a Pathways member. If you are interested and you are on in the field doing the work, please feel free to join us as a member, or feel free to, again, visit our website, sign up for our newsletter, where we share information monthly about the work or any other resources that some of our partnering organizations are doing. And again, you'll find this robust library of resources that I just shared as well. Thank you all. As I mentioned before, Ball State is one of our universities that are in our compendium with an exemplary program of apprenticeships. I'd love to welcome them to the table. I want to be a part of this conversation.
Good afternoon. I'm Carrie Lively. I'm the Executive Director of the Pursuit Institute, and I'm working with Susan Tancock, who's the Associate Dean at the Teachers College at Ball State University. And so on our first slide, kind of talking about how the Pursuit Institute and Ball State University partnered together to create a registered apprenticeship for elementary education teachers. It really started out of where I'm working at, which is a career and tech ed district in Hamilton County, which is the county north of Indianapolis. And we established a career and tech ed district knowing that we needed to create opportunities for students that we were sending on to post-secondary. A lot of times career and tech ed has a stigma that it is for students that are not maybe college bound, that are for students going directly into the workforce. And by establishing a new career tech ed district, that was one thing that we wanted to make sure that we tried to combat that stigma a little bit. And so one of the programs that was a fantastic fit, not only for our community, but for our education partners, was addressing that teacher shortage. And so finding a way that we could get students connected in high school to fill that teacher pipeline was of utmost importance. And that really was why in Hamilton County, we pursued Ball State, which is the number one. I would argue that I'm a school teacher, school counselor, school administrator, trained from Ball State University. So I would argue that Ball State is the best teacher preparation program in Indiana. And we went directly to Ball State to see if there was any interest in creating a partnership. And I met with Susan and her team, and really was very organic from the ground up of talking about what students in Hamilton County need, what our educators in Hamilton County are looking for, and really how we could utilize Ball State as kind of the vehicle to get students to the classroom. And so we worked together with Ball State and created the first registered apprenticeship program for education in Indiana.
And about at that same time, an RFP came out for the Attract, Prepare, Retain grant from the Indiana Department of Education. And we sought partners in the state who were members of our largest feeder school. So we wanted to start there first. And we were able to find 8 school districts to partner with us to develop the first registered apprenticeship for teachers in Indiana. And with that funding, we were able to hire a director of teacher pathway programs, which was critical to this effort. and we were off to the races. We started our TREP, and a Grow Your Own pathway was created. On the next slide, you'll see a little bit about our program. Our apprenticeship program is a little bit different from the next one you're going to hear about, in that it starts in high school. So in grade 11, students take 3 courses from Ball State. These are online. They do have a synchronous component. And what enables students to do that is they get out of school at about 12 o'clock every day. They go to their registered apprenticeship site, and then different days during the week, they take online courses from Ball State delivered by online faculty. So they take a Principles of Teaching course, Child and Adolescent Development, and then a Teaching and Learning course. These are aligned to our CTE pathway called Education Professions in the next level program of study. And while they're doing that, they're placed in the afternoon in these apprenticeship positions. So Carrie will tell you a little about what those are and how those work.
Absolutely. So in our apprenticeship, we have the school districts as our employers. Actually, as we launched this as a pilot, we utilize the Boys and Girls Club as well. And so our students are actually employed by, there's 6 school districts in Hamilton County and the Boys and Girls Club as all viable employer options. And students are placed in a classroom setting or in a setting where they're working directly with students. In the case of the Boys and Girls Club, they're doing tutoring or reading intervention or math intervention before and after school with students. And so there's a little bit more flexibility or different timing for students, but it really is that the goal of students being able to be, or apprentices being able to be employed by their home district, that removes barriers for students to be able to access employment opportunities, that we can remove the transportation issue of getting students to and from different locations. And then also the opportunity to have each district be able to create a pipeline of grow your own apprentices. And so students have the opportunity to ramp on their junior year. That's ideally when students would be able to finish this apprenticeship in 5 years, but it's not a hard stop in high school. And so students who maybe find out that they want to go into education after their junior years can still ramp on and be part of the apprenticeship program. Their program looks a little bit different, but it still is really focused on embedding that work-based learning and on-the-job component and relating that to the instruction that they're receiving from Ball State.
Then in their senior year, their 12th grade year, they take what's called a capstone, and that's a children's literature course and a special education course. Once again, from they take that online from Ball State. There's about a 75-minute per week synchronous component to each of those classes as well. And they're placed in their apprenticeship program in the afternoons again. They also take whatever the school offers in terms of advanced placement or dual credit. One of our apprentices is taking coursework from 3 different entities and her high school. So she's pasting together all of this credit. She'll come out with over 30 hours of college credit by the time she graduates. They're also getting some certifications while they're in our program: first aid, CPR, working with unaccompanied minors, suicide prevention, and some others. After they graduate in 12th grade, we'd like them to take the parapro exam so that they can become what's called like a certified paraprofessional. Then on the next slide, you'll see what happens when they matriculate to Ball State. Whoops, one more. There we go. So they've completed essentially 1 year of college credit. So that leaves them 3 years of credentials that they still need to get at Ball State before they can graduate. So their first year post high school, you can see that they take traditional courses that you would take in any teacher prep program, along with some university Common Core requirements. But now their registered apprenticeship is in the Muncie Community Schools. So we run after school programs in many of our elementary schools. So that when they get to Ball State, then they participate as an apprentice and are paid by Muncie Community Schools. And we have a huge need for these types of personnel. They'll come to us having had 2 years of experience with children, which is going to be amazing. Their second year post high school, they finish a lot of their kind of general and early methods courses. Again, they're placed in an apprenticeship Hopefully that year we'll get them into the school day so that they're a regular member of the school faculty. And then that third year post-high school, they'll go back home, hopefully, for a year-long paid residency. We are piloting that for the first time this year. So in the fall semester, students will take several online courses and some face-to-face courses where we will actually send instructors regionally to deliver that instruction live. And then they'll stay in the same building and do their student teaching that second semester and be paid. We also think we'll be able to braid together the apprenticeship funding so that they will get not only the residency funding, which is around $12,000 from the state, but they'll also be able to be paid as a registered apprentice. So it cuts the cost of their four-year program in half. And they only need to be away from their school for those 2 years, the first year post-high school and the second year post-high school. And then on the next slide, we'll talk about a couple of challenges we had to implementation. And Carrie will start us off talking about communication issues.
We have no issues at all. This was perfect from the get-go. Actually, it has been phenomenal in working with not only Ball State, but we've included a lot of our state offices, from the Department of Workforce Development to we have the Office of Career and Technical Education, the Commission for Higher Education, the Indiana Department of Education, all of these other entities that are they have kind of a stake in the game. And my background, like I said, was in education, but I left the K-12 space and worked for the state and the Department of Workforce Development. So I had a little bit of an advantage to be able to not only understand the lingo that educators speak, but also kind of the workforce development aspect of kind of the way that we work in workforce development in the state. And so that piece was integral in making sure that we were utilizing our workforce boards, and we were connecting to the right stakeholders and the right individuals to make sure that we were supporting apprentices and supporting the expansion of the program from all avenues. And so that has been a learning process, figuring out who we need to contact at what point in time. And, as we're building out more opportunities and students and other districts are seeing that this is a viable option to grow their own educators, those challenges in implementation and actually scaling continue to kind of rise to the surface, that every community is a little bit different and there are different people at the table. And so really trying to help maneuver and strategically get the right people at the right table has been a challenge. It's been working. Like I said, we have 6 districts in my county alone, and we have those 6 districts that are all at the table ready to get students into this pipeline. But it's definitely has not been an easy thing to kind of create from the get-go.
Just learning the acronyms for Career and Technical Ed and Department of Workforce Development has been a real challenge for me. So while we're in meetings, we're often texting back and forth. I'm asking Carrie, what does this mean? She's asking me, what does this mean? Another challenge to implementation was the role of the mentor. So each of our apprentices has a mentor, and shifting that role of mentoring to more of a Department of Workforce Development type of mentor has been challenging. Getting them to understand these competencies, how to track the competencies to make sure that our candidates are meeting them, a different sort of supervision, a different lens of looking through that and planning activities that can help our apprentices meet those competencies. And then we found that the mentors have to do some student and family support as well, which I wasn't really anticipating the family support part because I'm in higher ed and we don't deal with the families. And actually we can't legally deal with the families unless we have a waiver. So that's been a kind of a new experience for us in higher ed. We are developing some professional development micro-credentials for these mentors so that they will have some professional development. And then we're developing a communication system where we'll meet probably once a month with these mentors so they can connect with each other and share strategies for how they're supporting these mentees. Funding has also been an issue. We keep hearing about braiding funding, but our braids are not working too well so far. Most grants that we're looking at do not cover tuition, and we really need tuition for that second and third year post high school, because the fourth year is pretty much free. I don't have funding for years 2 and 3. So that's been a challenge for us as well. And then finally, innovation. So I can speak about the university part. I don't know if you're at a university, but if you are, you might find that the wheels of change turn very slowly there, and that there are so many levels of approval that have to happen. I am so fortunate at Ball State. We started out as a teacher's college, so the whole university has grown up around us. And we have lots of great people in great places all the way up the pipeline through the provost. So that's been very helpful. But it takes a long time for them to understand what we're trying to do with these programs. Obviously, dual credit may not be a huge priority for higher ed, because ultimately it ends up in us at times losing some revenue that we would get if those students took the coursework as a full-time student at Ball State. So that change has been very slow, although I feel very supported in that. It's just not at the speed that I'd like for it to happen. And Carrie can talk about how that works in the district and community.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I would probably echo that some of those challenges can be copy and pasted to the district and community levels. One of the biggest challenges to innovation and expansion of the program is helping districts see themselves, districts which are K-12 educators, see themselves as an employer instead of that educator. So really trying to support our districts in understanding their role as an employer versus their role as an educator. That's been a learning curve for a lot of our districts, and misunderstanding kind of what their job to do in this apprenticeship model might be. From a community standpoint, really not only with this apprenticeship program, but with apprenticeship programs across multiple disciplines, is understanding what students can and can't do. The differences that a student from, we have a program called cadet teaching, which is kind of like an intern for teachers. How a cadet teacher is different than an apprentice, where we're training an apprentice to be a teacher. They have skills, knowledge, and capability to help to support and run a classroom. Is very different than a cadet teacher coming in from high school and grading papers and making bulletin boards. So understanding kind of the nuances and the differences between what an intern might look like compared to an apprentice. And then also really buying into the fact that this is a viable workforce pipeline and a viable pipeline to address the teacher shortage. Helping our districts and our superintendents. We have some leaders that understand that they need to jump on board. They need to jump on board now, and they will take every apprentice that we have, whether they're from that district or not. So we have, superintendents and leaders on one end of the spectrum, and then all the way on the other end of the spectrum is still trying to pull them along and help them understand how this can be a solution to some of the hiring issues that they have. So the innovation is there, the idea is there, the concept has proven to be beneficial. It's just getting everyone on board and seeing where these implementations can be beneficial to not only students but to also the workforce pipeline.
And we will turn it over to Missouri State.
Thank you. So at Missouri State, we have started our apprenticeship model in the area of special education. Part of this is, as the beginning of this webinar, they talked about, see where the highest need is. And in the state of Missouri, special education has always been our highest area of teacher shortage. An additional piece to the special education field is that there's already potential individuals that have bought into that career pathway that are currently working as paraeducators. So we started with special education and have kind of moved from there into a larger model with other areas, which I'll discuss. But at this time, what we do is we try to present this as a cohesive timeline. So we start these conversations really at the high school level. And the most important thing, and the piece that keeps coming back from students and people interested in this program, is ultimately affordability. And one of the ways that individuals can make their path to certification more affordable is looking at that associate degree or a 2-year institution option to get some of those general education requirements out of the way. This is kind of the model that we send out in our marketing, but it's not by any means the only model. Where I have that arrow pointed, it really highlights all of the different ways that individuals could enroll. So this example is the 2-year and associate's degree from a community college, but it could also be just that they start straight out of high school and go directly to work as a paraeducator. Our apprenticeship is a little bit different than other apprenticeships at the teaching level that have taken place around the country, in that many of those were kind of top driven. They came from state departments, they came from state funding, where our apprenticeship model was actually a grassroots initiative, just started by a couple faculty members, myself and another one. And so we decided that this is something that we knew fit with the philosophy around preparing high quality teacher candidates. And so that's what started our impetus for this pathway in general. As this pathway has been developed, though, we've spread, as you'll see on the next slide, across the entire state. We're currently working in all areas. In that southwest corner of the state is actually where we're located at Missouri State University. But each of these highlighted areas is a school district which we're working with. We partner with almost 200 school districts across the state. And to give you an idea, that's over about a third of school districts that exist across the state of Missouri. In addition to that, there's also one of our challenges, which has also been one of our benefits, is there are 13 regional workforce development boards. And each of these boards are sectioned off in different areas around the state, but they each have different priorities and each have different funding opportunities as well. One of the things that we were surprised and when we started this journey a couple of years ago is as we looked at all of these 13 regional boards, not a single one had education listed as priority funding at that time. We were a little bit, again, beneficial that special education, because of how it's categorized by the Department of Labor, fits in the healthcare field. But ultimately, over the last 2 years, we've really worked to make sure that these regional boards are making education as a priority, so that as they're allocating funds from the Department of Labor, the Department of Workforce Development, that they're able to access these funds to individuals going into the education field. It's been interesting in doing that process because a lot of their boards are made up of community members, which also may serve on their school boards or even administrators in the local schools. So it's really been a learning piece on the side of the regional development boards, as well as our Institute of Higher Ed, about how we can help train and fund each other. The other piece that we have a little bit of an advantage of, and something to think about here, is almost the whole bottom half of the state are 58 counties that are considered persistent poverty counties. So when you're talking about a need, especially this financial need, this area of the state has predominantly always struggled with workforce development and with having jobs that pay the living wage that is needed in our state. And so one of the things that we were able to do is last year we partnered with the Southwest, the Ozark Region Workforce Development Board, and we were able to secure over $15 million in grants. One was from the Apprenticeship Building America grant, which is put out through the Department of Labor. And the other one is the Good Jobs Challenge, which came from the Department of Commerce. And so thinking about these pieces, they do not just support our students. I wish that was the case, but they prioritized high priority fields, transportation, medical, education as one of those when they submitted these grants and submitted for this funding. In the funded proposals, the proposal from our region was the only one that mentioned education. And I say this to everybody on this call is because you guys need to get out there and advocate for these things in your state if they're not already happening. Because anybody who's done this process will always tell you that funding is one of the biggest challenges, and having funding is something that is so critical and so needed. But part of that work for funding is that advocacy. So as we move on to the next slide, you'll notice that our partnership is a little bit different. And our partnership became different because we really wanted to think about how are we making this a partnership with the employers, our K through 12 schools. And in doing that, we started thinking about our coursework, our sequence of courses, our course layouts. And we started to develop a process thinking about a policy called prior learning assessment or credit by assessment. And probably every university, every institute of higher ed has this policy in place. This is typically how individuals qualify for dual credit. This is typically how individuals test out, especially in the foreign languages of some of their coursework. But we started thinking about if individuals can demonstrate their competency and knowledge around topics, why can we not do that same sort of model and same sort of philosophy with our partners, our school partners? So how does this really work is that we have set up through our curriculum which classes are geared more towards that applicable on-the-job training piece. And with those pieces, we partner with K through 12 schools that actually offer at our undergraduate level up to about half of their professional education curriculum, and on our graduate level, about a third. For individuals that take these classes, they take them from the districts, and we try to give the districts some autonomy in what these specific course content looks like. But what we don't have autonomy are the learning objectives that are part of this class. The learning objectives that are there are learning objectives that we expect our same students on campus to be able to master. But many times in the classes that we selected, we're coming up with contrived applied experiences, or we have a practicum where we're placing them out in the field to get some experience. With these partnerships with the K through 12 schools, since these individuals are working, they're able to apply those pieces as well as have that on-the-job learning naturally within their employment. At the end of the semester, there is a competency assessment. Sometimes it is a true kind of assessment. Sometimes it's a demonstration through a product, but they submit that to the university, and it costs $100 assessment fee is what we assess that on. But any of the classes that students take this way, they do not pay any tuition for. So they get a credit received on their transcript just as if they transferred it in from another institution, but they're transferring it in from their K through 12 school. And this has been one of the biggest ways that we've really gotten partners on board. So out of those 200 districts, about 70 of them actually participate in this model with this coursework. And a lot of that has happened because of innovative programming. And it's innovative programming truly by our K through 12 partners. We're lucky enough today to have Dr. Christina Smith on here with me. But I'll show you guys on the next slide that we really try to operationalize it for individuals that want to participate in this kind of deluxe model of the prior learning assessment, what the expectations are. What are the expectations for us as a university? What are the expectations for the district? And also, what's the expectation for that student? And so blending these pieces together and being really upfront about what the needs are has made it so it's plausible for our K through 12 schools to be able to take this on. Dr. Christina Smith.
Yes, thank you. So as Dr. Adamson was saying, with that Southwest Missouri region and having those high poverty school districts, they also are very rural school districts. The majority of school districts in the state of Missouri are. One of the challenges that we found is that with those small school districts, with some of those PLA classes that Dr. Adamson had referred to, we're coming up with, we only have one para in our district or 1 to 3 paras in our district who really is qualified to be able to teach this and have the time time to invest into these paraprofessionals. As another innovative approach, Hollister School District, which is the K-12 district that I work for, we suggested creating a cohort. And so through that, we as the cohort, Southwest Missouri special education cohort, decided any small school districts that only have 1 to 3 or a small amount of paraprofessionals that are participating in this program, we will facilitate those PLA classes for the students and oversee not only the competencies that need to be assessed and to be able to be taught to the paraprofessionals, but also work with the area districts on that district component side. So those practicum hours, making sure the competencies that Missouri State as well as us want to make sure that they are achieving, that those are being monitored, that they are receiving feedback, and that they are working through their coursework successfully. Dr. Adamson also referred to this is at no cost to the paraprofessional, and it remains that way. As a district, we've acted as a physical agent and asked our small area school districts around that are participating in this program to sign an MOU with us, and we've charged a very low fee of $120 per class, per semester, per student to be able to have them join our cohort, learn alongside other paraprofessionals, and be able to complete this coursework. And so districts are utilizing those professional development funds that are available to them through sometimes title grants, sometimes through some grow your own funds through the state that our Department of Elementary and Secondary Education provide in order to be able to allow their paras to work through. Of course, they see the innovativeness in this, that their paras are still working in their district. They're still getting all of the competencies that are required, but they do not have the manpower maybe to make all of that happen, but they're getting that and knowing that they are going to have a certified special education teacher. So really, it's a win-win-win for everybody, Missouri State, the district that is being served, and the student that is acting as the paraprofessional in the district at that time.
That was wonderful. And just a testament to Dr. Smith and some of the work that they've done at her school district. This is one of the first years in recent time, and I'm going to knock on wood when I say this, but she won't brag for herself, but they have not had any turnover in special education teachers and paras. And I truly believe that that's a testament. They didn't have to do any new hiring this year, and they were completely staffed because that individuals are getting their needs met. Both those classroom teachers are seeing that they have trained paraeducators that are working, but also their paraeducators are getting the skill sets that they need to be effective within their jobs. So we've given you a lot of information, but one of the pieces that I want to kind of tell you is how can you implement this? And when I partner with other schools and when I partner with students, one of the things that I want to always tell them is that this is not an easier way to get a degree. This is not going to be easier than going to a 4-year institution and doing a traditional model, especially when you're thinking that you're going to be a full-time student and you're going to be working. But what it is, it's a more efficient way to get that degree, and that you're going to walk into your first day of the job as a teacher with 3 to 4 years of experience under your belt. The prior learning assessment model that we mentioned is kind of the Cadillac model. It's kind of the top tier. However, we have individuals and individual school districts that sometimes do not offer all the available courses. They only offer what they can. And we also have individual school districts that are still participating as that mentor and in that mentorship role as an apprenticeship site and employer, but they are not able to offer any of the pieces that reduce tuition. And for some students, that may not matter because they're already getting all of their tuition paid in another format, or they have some sort of a reimbursement fund from their district, so they're able to help with those tuition costs as well. There is another institution in Missouri that we helped get their model kind of up and running, and they have really run with it, and as well as some of our other programs at our university, and they use a reduced tuition model. So for those classes that are taught by the K through 12 school district, students pay a reduced tuition on those courses, but in return, the university actually pays the instructor from that K through 12 school district, which in the model that we have now with Dr. Smith, that is not the case. We do not pay any money to the school district. The other piece that has helped kind of reduce some of those financial obligations are thinking about a year-long model. One of the things that our paraeducators have expressed frustration in the past is many times summers go unpaid. And so thinking about what are the year-long models, maybe individuals are reporting to work for extra tutoring or support services and also able to do some of their schoolwork at that time. Also providing them pathways into some of those provisional teaching positions, or even hiring them as a long-term sub, which the pay for that is typically a little bit higher than what they would be making as a paraeducator, but still works in that model of apprenticeship as long as they're meeting those apprenticeship standards. Finally, the last piece that I'll mention is really the importance of thinking innovatively about course scheduling. We at the Institutes of Higher Ed are really focused on traditional models, 16 weeks, 8 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, maybe 2 weeks with intersessions. But many times our busiest times of the year within higher education are also the busiest times of year for K through 12 schools too. So when we started thinking, one example that I'll give you, when we started thinking about an intersession class this year, the traditional intersession would have co-aligned right with the start of the school year. So instead of putting that in place then, we thought down the road, let's think mid-September. Mid-September is a time when our K through 12 schools are starting to reduce maybe some of the expectations because people are getting in the swing of things. But also it's a time period with, if students are taking a traditional 16-week class, maybe those classes aren't to their peak yet. So we actually offered a 2-week intersession starting on September 11th, which really made an impact for our students. And within about 15 minutes of posting it, it was full of, the class was full. So that's something we'll be looking at in the future to really respond to our students' needs and figure out what we can do to best support them.
Thank you to our wonderful panelists, our colleagues at Ball State and Missouri State for sharing the innovation that's happening at their campuses and how they're reducing barriers in terms of accessibility and affordability to become a teacher. So we are going to dive into our Q&A. In the meantime, please continue to add your questions to the chat. We will try to address any questions that have not yet been answered live. The first question is for our colleagues at Ball State in Indiana, Susan and Carrie. What role do you think institutions of higher education should take in designing, implementing, and evaluating teacher registered apprenticeship programs?
Well, I can't imagine us not being at the table from the very beginning, and Carrie was so great about that. Came to us first, really before at the very beginning of the Pursuit Institute, and talked to us first. And I think that was really critical in making sure that our point of view was represented. For example, we have to meet in-test standards, right? So we had to make sure that all of the courses lined up so that we were addressing both our standards and the competencies. And so that's the first thing we did, was map our competencies, the competencies onto our coursework to make sure that we could address those. That was really critical. We have different points of view in terms of, we have to focus on licensure. We can't just focus on having a wonderful apprenticeship opportunity. We have to look at things like cost, time to degree, retention, student support services. So I think it's critical that all of the stakeholders have to be at the table from the very beginning.
Thank you. Our next question is for our colleagues at Missouri State. What strategies did you all implement to market and recruit for your program?
So one of the first pieces that we did, which was probably unknown to us at the time as a resource, but turned out to be the most valuable, is we actually requested a list of all the currently employed paraeducators around the state. from our Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And with that list, we got back around 17,000 individuals which are employed in that paraeducator position in the state. And then we sent them 3 emails and a postcard. We also sent a poster about our program to each area school across the state. And the responses we got back, we ended up getting about 7,000 responses back of individuals who were interested, just from that very much a grassroots kind of low technology piece. But we had a QR code with an interest form, and we got about a 50% response rate. Granted, some of those were shared to other people that had interest, but it was one of those pieces where it was a low-cost solution and something that we were able to reap definite benefits from.
Thank you, Dr. Adamson. Our next question is for Susan and Carrie. What are the most important supports we needed to design and implement a teacher registered apprenticeship program?
Well, I'll talk about from the higher ed point of view. One of the things that we found invaluable is to have a project manager. So I have a director of teacher pathway programs. She interacts with all of those entities and she has experience with all of them. So it was a wonderful hire on my part. So that was essential. We're also finding that we need a lot more support for the students than we initially thought. So we're figuring out how to leverage the vast amount of university resources to support those students. And we have them, we just have to deploy them. Something else is data, right? So the university needs data, the state needs data, the DWD needs data, the CTE needs data. So someone to manage all of that data. So that's a support that we need as well. And then Carrie can probably add some in here.
And I think because our apprenticeship's a little bit unique in terms of really focusing on the K-12 student, that's added some additional challenges in terms of support for students, support for families, understanding that students are still in high school, but also enrolled in a full-blown college system. So understanding how to support our K-12 students and families, and understanding how we can help support our school leaders and helping students get appropriately placed. There were some questions about, how students have access to AP or dual credit courses and how that may or may not be equitable. And that's something that takes an individual to go through and comb through someone's transcript and realize that there's certain classes that they'll need to get from a community college system, or it's very much an individualized support system.
Thank you. The next question is for Dr. Risha. What are the advantages and disadvantages of an IHE being a sponsor or training provider for Registered Teacher Apprenticeship Program?
Sure. So if you look at many of the other apprenticeship models outside of the field of education, many times the sponsor is the employer. I think one of the biggest pieces that's probably the disadvantage of is a management piece. Institutes of higher education may not have staff or even faculty that have that time within their workload, within their even skill set necessarily of managing some of the data that is needed, of registering individuals, of making sure all the paperwork is completed, of consistently making sure that the standards are being met by that employer. And so that's definitely a disadvantage there. However, probably the largest advantage of is many times when you look at the funding and the pieces that are coming out to help support, the support system that is getting the funding is traditionally the sponsor. And when we think about placing that obligation on many of our school districts, especially some of our rural school districts or the school districts that are underfunded, that puts a burden on them, which is something that us in higher education typically have the plethora of resources that can help manage large grants and also write to get those large grants. So I think it's a balance there. I can't tell you that there's one genuine way that I would push people to go to, but I think that it's important to think that there are advantages and disadvantages definitely on both sides.
Great, thank you. And so that participants are aware, we will make available all of the answered questions that came about in the chat. We're going to ask one final closing question to our panelists, and then we will wrap up our webinar for today. So the final question came up in the chat, is about your retention rate for your programs. So Susan and Carrie, can you speak briefly to your program's retention rate? And then Dr. Risha, if you could close us out with that question.
Our program has not really been going long enough for us to track that, but I will tell you our goals for that is to have the students finish the whole pathway. That's one of the retention issues, have them persist. You know, we have statewide data on this about students who take dual credit, that they retain at higher rates and persist and graduate at higher rates than those who don't take dual credit. Ours just hasn't been going long enough for us to figure out what that is.
Thank you.
So for our program, we're actually graduating our first cohort of individuals in December. And out of that first cohort of individuals, we have 30, which doesn't seem like a huge number, but we lost 2 of them. 2 individuals were the 2 that left. But right now, just with this program, we have 430 individuals which are now enrolled. And we really put one of the testament pieces of why this has been successful to our K through 12 partners, like Dr. Smith, who spoke, that are really providing on the ground services and supports and mentorship. But also, more importantly, we also do a student support group that we meet monthly. And we do that virtually, and we help them access some of the university supports that they may need to be successful. We also talk a lot about mental health supports. And with some of that workforce development and some of those boards that we've worked with, the funding that they can provide for supportive services like childcare, like transportation, for some of those big events that sometimes happen that derail individuals from higher education, they are able to help overcome some of those obstacles and support our candidates. And so the biggest piece, I think we've had pretty high retention rates overall, but I think a lot of that is not based on any one person or any one agency. It's really this model of apprenticeship and how all of these entities work together to really support the development of an apprentice and are invested in that individual and their completion.
Great. Thank you. Thank you again to our wonderful panelists. We want to encourage you all to provide feedback to us. Please complete the survey. We will pop that in the chat. And then also check out our paper that we publish on how EPPs can be involved in Registered Teacher Apprenticeship Programs. And we want to share a few announcements about upcoming events. I'll turn it over to Sabrina from Path Innovate EDU to talk about their upcoming presentation.
Thank you. Yes, my colleague and I, Brian Hassel from Public Impact, we will be presenting at the Aurora Institute upcoming this weekend in Palm Springs. We will be talking about teacher residencies and how building the future of education, creating equitable teacher residencies for all. So we hope to see some folks there. If you are not presenting, but you'll be an attendee, please feel free to stop by our session. We'd love to chat and gain more information and share some of our knowledge around EPPs and teacher residencies. So thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. I also want to highlight for you that AACTE's annual meeting, it's coming up in February in Denver, Colorado, and we have a plethora of sessions on teacher registered apprenticeship programs. Our colleagues from Ball State will be at that conference as well. So we strongly encourage you all to register and continue the conversation with us. Thank you so much for joining us today.